Hi, everyone. I'm here with Roy Owens, and Roy is here to give a little testimonial for me about these cards that I created, Addiction Recovery with the Law of Attraction. So, Roy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let everyone
Yes,
know what
certainly.
you do.
Hi, everyone. My name's Roy Owens. I am, well, I suppose I'm in recovery myself over 11 and a half years now. And sort of about 3, 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something different than the basic 9 to 5 job. And so I started on a journey where I first of all became qualified as a life coach and an NLP practitioner. And it was great. It was really, that was a move in the right direction, but it still wasn't what I wanted to do. So I then ventured into solution focused hypnotherapy, and I gained a diploma in solution focused hypnotherapy, practiced, started to build a client base. But even that wasn't what I truly wanted. And I came across the UK Hypnosis Academy run by Carl Smith, and I sort of learned techniques, um, different inductions, different therapies within the hypnosis world, which is really moving me to where I want to go. And I'm able to use hypnosis and the life coaching, use the bundle really, use sort of strands from everything I've had, solution focused as well to a certain degree. Um, I'm sort of be able to give people some hope, give them, tell them my story, and tell them my journey, and then through the use of hypnotherapy, it's try to get people. We do have a thing called an emotional detox, which is such a wonderful thing to do to release people from the fears, the anxiety, the depressions. The marvelous technique when we're dealing with PTSD, which so many people have these days. And so where I'm at is that I'm now sort of venturing to look to move away from my management systems, which is my main career, if you like, and move very much into the therapy world. And obviously, alcoholism is I was going to say a primary interest. It's a lifelong dedication towards not drinking
Yes.
one day at a time. And I mean, I sort of each day I approach life differently than I ever used to. I used to approach life very much along the lines of, why haven't I got this? Why didn't that happen? Why did she go? Why didn't this job happen? And it was all about the negative. Why haven't I got? And in my earlier days in recovery, I came across the late Dr. Wayne Dyer,
Mm.
and he laid the foundations for an awful lot of the attitudes and thought processes I have now. If I quite often I'll listen to him on YouTube, I'll have his books on Audible and what have you for when I'm staying in hotels.
His voice is so relaxing, and like he does the best meditations, you guys. If you should check him out, Dr. Wayne Dyer on YouTube. He's transitioned. He's no longer on earth with us, but he all of his stuff is out there and it's free.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, because it's out there on YouTube, it's almost like he is still, and maybe he is. I don't know. But I used to. I mean, some of his phrases were absolutely blew me away. And in the early days of recovery, when I would say, "Well, that's never going to work," or "That won't work. That's no good," he used to say, "Nobody knows enough to be a pessimist,"
Yeah.
and that's true. And I sort of embrace that these days because it's like things like your cards, things like meditation, things like hypnotherapy, where I'm not aware of. I mean, there may be, but I'm not aware of any empirical medical evidence that's out there that says all of this stuff works because. But the fact is, it works.
Yep.
There's loads and loads of evidence of it working, maybe not how it's working. And so, I have a mind now that he used to say, have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing.
Mhm.
And again, sort of, a mind open to all kinds of possibilities. And just because somebody comes along and does something different to the way I've been brought up to do it, doesn't make it wrong. And he used to say, I've never thought of things that way. I've never considered that. And that's the way I approach it now. So although he's no longer with us, he's left a legacy.
Yeah.
which and I know an awful lot of people in recovery listen to his stuff, read. He was very much associated with Deepak Chopra. He was associated with Eckhart Tolle.
Louise Hay. Do you know Louise Hay?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. From Hay House Publishing. I mean, she published all his books, or her company did, and so got a lot of influences. And Marianne Williamson, Gabriella Bernstein are all people authors who've come into my world, if you like, or I found them as I go through recovery. And
He was their mentor. He was one of their mentors, at least. I know
exactly,
Gabby Bernstein,
exactly.
sure. And mine too. Like he was probably my first, well, Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer both were like the first, like they opened me up to this whole, you know, realm. I think I saw Wayne Dyer on like a PBS free
Hmm.
doing a seminar, and I was like, who is this guy? He
Yeah,
it really spoke to me immediately. He resonated with me. And then I started following him, and this was so long ago. This was before the internet, you know?
yeah, and he's and it's still here, and it's amazing when you start talking. People who are just looking for a different way of life have found him. It's
Hmm.
not just in recovery, but people outside. And I've introduced him to so many people, and they'll say, "Wow, it's fantastic. I'm sleep better. I've got a different outlook on life. I'm more relaxed, and what have you." And sort of, so my life sort of evolved that way. And I mean, my current way of life is how I can't even remember how I became connected with you, because we've only ever met over the internet. It was
Social
through.
media, I think.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
did you hear Wayne Dyer's story about how he quit drinking? He
No.
talked about it. Well, just real quick, he talked about like that, he would have beer every day. His story kind of is a little bit similar to mine, and he definitely inspired me to quit. I know you did AA. I didn't do AA, but he had like a bunch of family members, like he had a bunch of kids. And so he and his wife were at dinner one night, and it was really cold out, and it was a big deal because he had younger kids to get him in and out of the vehicles. And they go to this restaurant and they didn't serve beer. And he said he always had two beers, next to him at all times because he didn't want to wait for the server to have to get another one. So he'd always make sure he had two at a time. It was very important to him. And this one night, it just occurred to him because they didn't serve beer at this restaurant. He made his entire family, his wife, get all these kids, to go to a different restaurant where they served it. And that was just a huge wake up call to him. And he
Yeah.
did like a little, because that is like, that's pretty selfish, that's when he realized, holy shit, this alcohol is just become way too important to me. And it's, messing up my priorities. And it was just like, so for him, it was an energetic shift. And I do feel like as many times as I tried to quit, the last time, was like about 3.5 years ago. And I knew that I had this energetic shift. I did pray about it. I knew that it was done. Like I trusted myself for the first time because
Yeah.
I think it almost has to be an energetic shift. Otherwise you're white knuckling it. You know what I mean?
Oh God, and there's no worse place to be,
Right.
because, as you say, white knuckling it. You desperately, desperately want the drink, but
Hmm.
you know that you can't, or you really shouldn't. And white knuckling it, for me, sooner or later, the desire overtakes the need not to. If you know what I mean, the white knuckling fails at some point. You can only keep your hands clenched for so long until the muscles weaken, and once they weaken, it's quite easy to do that and pick up that, isn't it?
Yes.
Very, very easy to do that. And that's what happened. And for so many times, white knuckling it is an awful place to be. And I mean, my story, but the crucial point is that of acceptance, that of surrender. That surrender is the point. And of course, but at the point of surrender, I knew it's done, it's all finished, it's gone. And I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a thought. That's the difference. Prior to this, all of these thoughts, I've got to stop drinking, or I mustn't pick up today. It was all in here. The day I hit that point of I can't do it anymore, it was from in here. It was right at the heart. And there's a guy I used to know who's passed away now, and he used to say, the journey from the head to the heart is the longest journey we ever make.
Mhm.
And when I arrived in here, that's when I was able to accept. And for me, each day, up until now, and pray God it doesn't happen today, I've not had a compulsion to drink in any way. A lot's gone on. I've lost both my mum and dad. I've lost a partner, and none of that has made me drink. Can I just share something with you?
Sure.
Um, my partner Sarah, she passed away, and we knew for some time that that was going to be the outcome.
Mhm.
And we were having lunch one day, and she brought the subject up, and the conversation came round to drinking and what have you. And I said, I promise you that I won't drink if anything ever happens to you. You can take that. And she said, well, I'll tell you two things. One is I'll come back and haunt you. And she said, the other thing is, she said, when you get a cold beer? I said, yeah. And she said, you get the runs down the outside of the glass. I said, yeah. She said, but think of them in my tears.
Aw, yeah.
Wow.
And she says she'll come back and haunt you. I just wanted to clarify because you got a strong accent. And by the way, you guys, obviously he doesn't live in the United States. Well, you could still live in the United States and have an accent, but you live outside of London.
Yeah, just outside. But
Yes.
I'm originally from Liverpool.
Okay, Liverpool. Yeah, the Beatles.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
That's what we think of. Like that's all we associate with Liverpool. But so yeah, he ordered my deck of cards and I was like felt really guilty because of the shipping cost and he had already known me and well, you can tell that part and
Yeah, it cost a fortune, didn't it, to send them over
it cost more to ship them than it did the deck
to
of
buy
cards
them.
cost. Yeah.
But that, getting the
Gotta
cards
figure that out.
was amazing because I've got a really good friend and she's a medium, and quite often when she pops around, she'll come and have dinner one evening, and she'll bring her cards with her and she'll do a reading, or she'll bring some of her friends. And so it seemed very, very much like that. But of course, when I opened the box, when it arrived, it's anything but. But the same kind of principles that this lovely new crisp deck of large cards. It's not like holding playing cards. Um, and the instructions, you just sort of tap it and shuffle it until one pops out.
Mhm.
And because I don't know how many cards are in the deck. I mean, you probably
Like
know.
44, and that's because it's like an angel number, and
Yeah.
the cards were inspired. They're law of attraction cards. So I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people like, are they oracle cards? And sometimes like I'll tag them like that just because I know people who are interested in psychics and mediums and oracle and tarot. I'll tag them hashtag Oracle has because I know that they're going to be interested in these too, but they're actually law of attraction cards, which means it's just energy, just like everything's energy. You're always going to
Yeah.
attract the card that's meant for you. It's not meant to be psychic cards. But in a way it is because you attract the card, the message that's meant for you that day. And for those of you who don't know, this is simply the techniques that I use to quit drinking alcohol and also my food addiction. Like I used it to stop binging. I'm a binger type, so I could abstain, and then if like let's say alcohol, I would inevitably, go crazy. Like I could abstain for a while, but moderation was my problem. I'm a binger, so
Mm.
that was what it helped me with, and I still use my cards. I use my cards most days, and we were going to talk about that part later of like why is it so hard just to pick a card? Like it takes 5 minutes. Why is it hard to get into that routine? But we'll talk about that later.
But that's it, though, isn't it? It's routine. But it's when you pick the cards up and shuffle them, one does come out.
Mhm.
And for me, it was a case of whatever comes up is the one I take for that day. It's not a case of looking at it and think, no, I don't fancy that, and putting it back in, and
Yeah.
then shuffling again and go, no, not that one either. And eventually you'll get to one, oh, I quite like the sound of that. It's accepting the first one that comes up, that word again, acceptance.
Mhm.
And then just reflecting on it. I mean, it's not meditation, it's not some in-depth analysis. It's just reading it and just reflecting on it. And as we were talking beforehand, it's sort of I read it a couple of times maybe, and just think what it means to me, and then feel it. Just let it absorb, and it's there for the day. And as I was saying, on long drives and what have you, things like that, or when I've got a quiet moment, is just to bring you back to thought into my mind. And I said that it will always generate some kind of a smile. It
Right.
might be a smile about, it will take me back to a time when I was in a dark place. And so I'm smiling about where I am today, or it will carry me forward or project me to where I want to be. And I'll smile about the fact that I can actually plan today, and I can dream, and I can, just look forward to life in a way that I never used to. And
Well, focus is everything, right? And that's kind of,
oh
I've had people buy the cards who, they don't think they have an addiction, but something really important to keep in mind is we all have addictions. Like sometimes, and I can't speak for, London, but in the United States, the number one addiction is overthinking, negative thinking. We're taught that, we got to grind every day and hustle, and you're not allowed to relax. And, and actually it's so important to relax. It's so important to, that's when we're in receiving mode. You don't want to always be hustle, hustle, hustle.
yeah.
And so my cards discuss that actually. And, I think that it just, some of the people who feel they don't have addictions, then they read it and they're like, oh my God, this message was exactly what I needed to hear. Even if you don't think you have an addiction, well, number one, we all are addicted to something, whether it's our cell phones or Netflix, or we're just negative focus. So it shifts your focus for the day. And then that whole day, like you said, like it will be in your head. And there's not a bad card in here, by the way. Like every card is going to be great advice, great focus, and it will teach you law of attraction. And this is stuff that I learned over a decade. It took me over a
Yeah.
decade to learn the stuff. Now, it didn't take me a decade to write it, but it's like it's stuff that I learned over the years, and on how to be mindful, like you mentioned earlier, that just mindfulness. And yeah, you get to compare yourself to your old self, and it just
Yeah.
keeps that in intention right there. Like to sometimes we think we're not doing a great job, but hey, just look at where you were
Oh
11
goodness me,
years ago.
yeah. And the other thing was, and I sent you the message last week about the reinforcement of the cards,
Reinforce.
getting the same card 2 days. Now, that was a case of getting one card and then reading it, reflecting on it, and doing what I do with it for the day. And I'll put it back on the top of the deck, and I'll put the lid on before I get on with my day. Opening it the next day and shuffling and shuffling and shuffling, and that same card popped out again. And it's almost like, and it was right that it came up because it fitted where I was at the time, where my headspace, my whole demeanor, and it was right that it came up another day. And it's happened a few times now. And I was staying in a hotel up in the north of the country, and each morning before I went out for breakfast, I was looking at the cards, I was shuffling. And out of 5 days I was there, the same card came up 4 days out of the five.
I think you told me, was that the serving others card?
That's the one. That's the one.
I
And it
remember
kept on
that
coming
story.
up and coming up and coming up.
My friend who has the cards, she only got them recently. She's probably going to watch this because she does watch my videos, but she'll know who I'm talking about. She, she's like, I think your cards are stacked. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I just keep picking the same card all the time. And I'm like, which one is it? And it's the one about having fun. Like, and I said, well, why do you think you keep picking the same card? 'Cause she's like, no matter how much, she's same thing you're saying, no matter how much you shuffle, just same card,
Yeah.
same card. And I'm like, are you having fun yet? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, that's why you keep picking the same card. Like you're attracting, because you have resistance to this message. Like she knows that like the reason she keeps getting the card is because it's one thing to have knowledge, it's another thing to apply the knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
we could be really smart and understand it all, but are we applying it? It's meaningless if we're not applying it. So I kind of think that's kind of how the universe works. Like you keep getting these reminders until
Mhm.
you actually are applying it. Because a lot of people will go, oh, well, I already know this. Okay, but are you doing it? Two
Yeah.
different things. Two different things.
But the other thing is people reflect on what they haven't got.
Yeah,
And while you're reflecting on what you don't have and what you want, you're never going to attract what you want while you're in that negative, not having, not
exactly.
enough, in that negativity. The minute you shift that, I'm not saying you get bowled over with abundance, but things start to happen.
Right.
And then gratitude comes into play. And when we're grateful for what we've got, then things start to happen. And then we start to visualize what it's going to be like when we truly achieve what we want. But it's always with this backdrop of gratitude and acceptance and being in the moment.
Absolutely. Abraham Hicks say that, and I follow Abraham Hicks. A lot of my teachings are based on it because it's like resonates with me so much. And I just want everyone to know about Abraham Hicks. But that if all we did was spend our time appreciating instead of
Yeah.
complaining, our life would just be magical. But how many of us do that? Like it, and I'm not saying it's easy. I never, ever, ever want to be like, well, just appreciate things. It's hard, because we've been trained. I want to even say programmed, brainwashed, heart washed to focus on the negative, and like you said, the lack. When we're focusing on lack, that's the foundation of law of attraction. Law of attraction 101 is our focus. If we focus on lack, we're attracting more of it. Anything you focus on grows, it gets bigger. So what are you focusing on each day? And that's the point of my
Yeah.
cards, is it changes your focus. It really does. If you do pick a card 5 minutes in the morning, it will shift your energy for the day. Just like exercising in the morning will shift your energy for the day. There's so many
Yeah.
things that we could do every morning that we're not doing. And then we're complaining that, our day's not going, we're not setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah.
We need to set
And
ourselves up.
one of the other things is envy, isn't it? Of envying somebody else, wishing I had what somebody else had. And
You're
that's not
never
going
going
to
to
bring
get
me
what
any
you
good
want.
either.
Yeah. If you
Mm.
are a hater, that's what I call them. If you're a hater, like if I'm looking at another coach, for instance, who's like doing way better than me, and social media, it fucks with their mind. I'm just going to come out and say it. It fucks with my mind, and I have to keep bringing myself back. Like, like, oh, well, look at how many followers and look at how many comments and like, why am I not, and da da da. It messes with us. I have an organic audience, like everyone who follows me because they want to follow me. I've never played any of the games, to follow and follow or any of that stuff. So I love that. I love that my audience is organic. But yeah, if you're a hater, you are actually pushing away exactly what you want. If you sit there
Yeah.
and be envious, you're creating a reality to be more envious. You're actually pushing away your goals, you're pushing away your intentions. And the thing is you want to look at those people who are doing better than you and admire them. Admiration will get you
Yes.
will get you closer to what they have. So admire and respect those people who are doing better than you. Don't be a hater. That's going to
Yeah.
just that's going to push you right away from your dream life. It really will.
And the other thing you mentioned there was practice, is that this isn't a one-off. In fact, some days, if I'm working at home and I'm sort of in and out of the office, into the lounge and back and what have you, I'll have that card for the day on the top of the deck. I might not have put it back. And so if I'm sitting down having a coffee at some point, I'll pick it up and look again and look again. And it's this reinforcement as well, if you can, is not to just have it as a one-off. It's an activity, tick the box now, I've done that for the day, chuck it in back in the box and away. It's coming back to it over and over and just re-reflecting. And that will reinforce it. But it's this word practice is really important.
Absolutely. And I asked Roy before we started recording, I asked him if, I was like, well, do you have your deck of cards? And his answer was no. But it's a good reason. I'm not mad at
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I've just got the one deck.
Yeah.
And I had a client who came to see me at the weekend, and she's having a real hard time. She's in the fellowship, and she's sober, and but she's going through a really torrid time. And she was sat talking to me about different things, and we were discussing. And in between us, I became aware of the fact that the cards were there. So what I did was I picked them up and I handed them to her, and I said, I want you to take these home with you, and I told her what I know how to hit the cards and shuffle and what have you, and she's been doing that, and sort of as you said, and I've been sending her a text asking her what the card is this day, what the card is that day. And as you said, it gives that little nudge in the right direction.
Right.
And
And I like how you're texting her to keep her in the routine, because I admit it's easy to blow something off, even though it could shift your whole day. I don't know why. It's human nature that we do it. And I think it's just kind of programming and just practice, like you said, practice and getting in that habit. Like we could create good habits too, just like we create the bad habits.
yeah, neural pathways and all that, but it's getting into that. I'll be seeing her at a meeting tomorrow night, so it'll be good to catch up and see how she's going with it. But
Cool.
I think there's a real strength in the cards for somebody, and it's not the be all and end all. What I'm saying is it's
Mhm.
another tool in the armory. And when
Yeah,
people,
and I would glad you said that, because I would never tell somebody, okay, yeah, I didn't go to AA, but I would never, I'm a big whatever works person. If something works for you, by all means, continue doing it. Hire a coach, go to therapy. Don't just say, okay, well, this is all I need is this deck of cards. The deck of cards is, like he said, it's an additional tool in your toolbox. Just because I didn't go to AA doesn't mean AA isn't very helpful for many, 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 many people, and especially just, if nothing else, what I love about it the most is how it's something to do during that time where you might have been going to happy hour or whatever it might be. It gives you, because we got to always replace those bad habits with something else, something better, something, what I did instead was I started going to the gym. Like I became, and which was obviously better than happy hour, much healthier
yeah,
habit. So whatever works for you, continue doing. And yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I like to reinforce, like,
yeah, there's lots of other things, but that kind of thing is a good practice. It's a start of the day practice. It's to pick it up and look at it throughout the day. And yeah, you can still go to AA, you can go to NA, CA, all the different fellowships you can go to, as you say, therapists, counselors, whatever. But it's just, as you said, I love that phrase, whatever works for you. We should never decry what somebody else is doing unless you can clearly see that it's harming them, that it's taking them
yeah.
back to where they used to be, in which case it's like a safeguarding kind of thing. But yeah, when people are trying different things, because I've never tried it or because it didn't work for me, doesn't mean to say it won't work for you or it won't work for somebody else. And
Well,
I
it
think when,
changes for us too. It can change for us. Like the same thing that used to work no longer works. Like we might have had a practice that we really loved, and then now it's not, then we need to graduate to something different. It's okay. We don't have to keep the same practices, and be so rigid in our lives. It's okay to expand and try new things. And, as long as we keep trying, that's the main,
yeah,
right?
it's that positive action, you
Yeah.
know, positive thoughts, positive actions, positive interactions. And we've got three
Mhm.
positivities there in the life when we're moving in the right direction.
Right, right. So, should we pick a card? I've got my cards here. We
Yeah.
pick one and see
See
what we
what we
get
got.
today before we sign off. And by the way, guys, I am going to put Roy's contact information in a link underneath this video, so you could take a look, and maybe Roy, send me you have a website that you can send
Yes,
me?
yeah. I'll send details across.
Okay, so got my cards, I'm shuffling, and I'm setting the intention. I'm going to pick a card that everyone might need to hear. Oh my God. Okay. Positive messaging. What were you just saying, Roy?
Positive
Positive,
thoughts,
positive,
positive
positive.
actions, positive interactions.
You said it 3 times. Focus on solutions, not problems. So I'll go ahead and read this one card to you guys before we sign off. Okay, this card is a reminder that you need to go out of your way to listen to positive messaging on podcast, YouTube, and social media. Have you been paying more attention to negative messaging? Most of the news we see is focused on the terrible and disturbing things happening in the world. People love to share and complain about adverse situations on social media. Therefore, we are constantly bombarded with fear-based news of health emergencies and war, among other things. We cannot control other things we cannot control from our living room. So, and we all know that, like we watch the news and it's just like all these horrible things. And like, what can we even do about it? We can't control it. And then now it's in our head. And what do we do? Okay, this does not mean you should bury your head in the sand and become so positive that you ignore the needs of others. There is a line you can cross with the good vibes only attitude in which it does become toxic. The goal is, can you imagine if I was a good vibes only person? I wouldn't have any clients, like it's okay to observe and discuss. It's okay to have contrast. Contrast gives us clarity. We use our emotions as guidance. We're not supposed to ignore or suppress our emotions. Very important to note that. But so that's why we can't be like good vibes only, good vibes only. I'm not a good vibes only person, but we always want to use it guidance on how to improve our life, right? Our emotions. It's okay to not be okay, in other words. The goal is not to avoid life and sit on a meditation cushion all day, pretending that all is well. The goal is to practice raising your vibration every day so that a high vibe becomes your new set point. When you are tuned into higher frequencies, you are in a better position to help others. You cannot help others when you need help yourself. Of course, you will still dip occasionally because there's always an ebb and flow to life, but you will not be able to vibrate low for too long. The reason I say that is because once we get a higher set point, a vibrational higher set point, that's, we're still going to have days where we're anxious and fearful and depressed, but we always are going to go back to that set point that we raised it to. It's really like once you get knowledge, you can't undo knowledge, right? So, once you learn all of these law of attraction techniques, they're with you for life and you can't unknow it. And sometimes you might wish you do, because then man, you actually have to take action. Then you realize there is no law of attraction without taking action. Okay, so once you experience a higher vibration often enough, I promise that you will lose your tolerance for the lower frequency emotions. Every card in this deck is designed to raise your vibration, and this will happen inevitably when you follow the instructions on each card. Man, this is the perfect card for me to pick. It's even like a little advertisement for my card.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, universe. But that's how it works. Take time today for recovery through learning and inspiration. Block people and groups on social media that no longer resonate with your long-term goals. You can also favorite and follow groups or people who motivate and inspire you. So block those accounts that are disturbing, like they're just, okay, and here's what I mean. Those accounts on social media where they just throw out all this fearful stuff, all of these problems, but they don't have the solution. What the hell?
Yes.
If you can talk about negative things happening, but give me a way to help. How do I help? What's the solution? How can I get involved? Don't just throw out all the fear-based problems and not give me a solution to help. That's so annoying. Okay. Make sure anything negative in your news feed is focused more on solutions than problems, and get involved to help out when the opportunity presents itself. So that's that positive messaging card. That's my buddy Lance. Actually, it's funny because I was creating these cards and I had a digital artist, and I was like, I didn't think of it until my last card. I could have just had all my friends as my people on the cards. But the last card I was like, because he's so positive that I was like, he would be perfect for this card. And I'm like, hey, can I have the artist draw you? And he was like, hell yeah. So that's how he got to be on that card. That's actually my friend. But anyway, so I think that was a great card to sign off with here.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you would like to add before we hang up the call?
I don't think so. I mean, it's been really inspiring. A lovely way to start the weekend. With such positive thoughts and I'm gonna, as I said to you, I'll be speaking to you about ordering some more cards soon anyway. So
and we'll figure out a better way to get those shipped to you. I'll just go straight to FedEx. USPS was not the smartest decision I've ever made.
Whatever it takes, anyway. But thanks, Mary Beth. Speak to you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.